easy to say we should connect to the Quran better. That's an easy thing to say. What does that even mean? The first time I heard that, when I didn't know anything, I was like, okay, I'm going to understand the Quran. I've heard many khutbahs about you should better understand the Quran. I went and somebody gave me a gift of a translation of the Quran. It was the Yusuf Ali translation, may Allah reward him. And I used to read it on the subway on my way to college. Okay, I'm going to read the Quran, I'm going to try to understand it. I could not make heads or tails of this thing. I could not understand anything. First of all, the language was Shakespearean, which was a challenge enough, right? So, when the moment you see it, hast thou not seeneth, I don't know what to do with this. And then after that, when you start with Al-Baqarah, for example, then Allah is talking about one thing, He's talking about the story of Adam, and He's talking about the Israelites, and He's talking about some people I don't know, and He's mentioning them briefly, and He moves on to something else, and something else, and something else. I'm like, what was this about? This is confusing. Now, if I go to someone and say, the Quran's confusing, astaghfirullah al-azim, what did you just say? You want to stay in the cult or what? Shut up. Just recite the Quran, make dua, okay? Just make dua. And if you start saying, hey, this is not making sense to me, how do you understand this? Then, brother, this is the kalam of Allah. You have to taqwa of Allah. Maybe let me take you to somebody who will do ruqyah on you. Fix your problem, the problem is Allah Himself said, لِيَدَّبَّرُوا آيَاتِهِ. So they contemplate His ayat. Ayatun lis-sa'ilin. Ayat for people who ask questions. Our religion is not like Judaism. It's not like Christianity. It's not like Hinduism. Ours is the only religion that says, think, contemplate, critique, analyze. If this was not from Allah, then bring your evidences. Evidence, exploration, go learn. Ask the people of the book. Ask the people of other religions. Which religion says go talk to people of other religions? Which religion says that? Which book says that? This is an incredible deen. It's a revolution, actually. It's the religion that's like no other religion, even in its structure, because it demands from human beings to be thoughtful, to be thinking, to be analytical, to be critical. And that's what the base of their faith, the strength of their faith comes from that. Ad'u ila Allahi ala basiratin. I call to Allah with insight. That's what I'm requesting that you put time into. And you don't need to put endless amounts of hours, 10, 15 minutes a day. That's it. Just deeply contemplate and think. And you have a community where people are educated in their religion, they're educated in deen, they've studied Quran. When you get those questions, bring those questions and say, hey, what is this ayah telling us? What does this ayah mean? And I started that journey, 23, 24 years ago. I can tell you with a complete degree of confidence, I know very, very little of the Quran. Very, very little of the Quran. And I'm not saying that out of some false humility. That's the reality of it. When you actually start studying the Quran, then you realize how much you don't know. How much you don't know. And it's such a fulfilling, rewarding experience to become a student of Allah's words. Because Allah's words are an endless ocean of wisdom. They're just an endless, it just keeps fulfilling you. Some of you are health conscious, you eat healthy. Some of you are exercise conscious, you take care of your bodies. Some of you have very good sleep schedules, right? There are things you put in place that make sure that you're living a healthy, a good life. Well, there needs to be a spiritual regimen too, a Quran regimen that needs to become a part of that, as regular as brushing your teeth. Like, this is the time I'm going to give this to Quran and thinking about the Quran. This is the time where weekly I'm going to come back to the masjid and ask these questions to the imam or to the shaykh. Hey, I was studying Quran. Here was this question I had. Here's something I'm contemplating. What can I read about this? What can I do more about this? Start somewhere. You don't have to be a scholar from the beginning, but everybody can be a thinker. Everybody can be sincere in their approach to Allah's word. And Allah does not leave any of His servants who come to His word, seeking His guidance, seeking to contemplate His word. He does not leave them with misguidance. And that's the other terrible thing that's been done in many Muslim countries, especially South Asia. They tell you, hey, don't study Quran on your own, you'll get misguided. You have to go study from a scholar. If you're not a scholar, don't touch it. Really? Really? The religion that spread, did it spread with scholars? When the Abyssinians heard the Quran, did they sit with a scholar when they heard the Quran? Were the Meccans themselves scholars? When the jinns were hearing the Quran in Surah Al-Ahqaf, they passed by and heard ayat of Allah. Did they get an ijazah first? And they go, hey, let me take a few courses in usul al-fiqh before I can hear this. They heard the Quran, they thought about it, they commented on it. Allah liked their comments so much, He put them in the Quran. He put that in the Quran. I don't dismiss the value of scholarship, but if you're going to make scholarship a gatekeeper from people thinking about the word of Allah, that is a crime against the book of Allah. That is a crime against the book of Allah. لا يعلمون الكتاب إلا أماني. You're making sure they remain the group that will they don't know the book. The ummah has to know the word of Allah. The ummah has to ask questions about the word of Allah. And sometimes you will get the wrong conclusions. You will get the craziest ideas. And that's why you have to go to people that know better and say, hey, I had this crazy idea. And they'll say, yeah, that's crazy. Let me tell you why that's crazy. And you say, oh, okay. Yep, you're right, that was crazy. And that's how you refine. That's how you learn any subject, isn't it? You make mistakes, you get corrected. You make mistakes, that's why you get tested. When you get tested, any subject, when you have a test, the only answers you will never forget are the ones you got wrong. You know that? The one that got the red mark on from the teacher, that one cut you deep. You're never going to make that mistake again. So actually, the process of learning and maybe heading towards the wrong conclusion and then getting it corrected, that's actually the way to refine ourselves. You can't just be perfect. And the assumption that someone who knows more than you has always got the right answer, that's also wrong. Because we're all human beings and this is the word of Allah. The word of Allah is perfect. There are people that I study with, I know I've taken over time, one last minute. The people I work with, they are scholars in Quranic studies. Like some of them have studied Quran, they've got PhDs from Muslim world and Western academia, others, hadith experts, others. And we study Quran together. And when we study the Quran together, we're like, yeah, we don't know. I was wrong about this ayah. I mean, I read it, but I didn't think this. I thought this is what it meant, but it seems like that's not what it means. We're revisiting our conclusions. Just because you're qualified and you've studied it for 15, 20, 30 years, doesn't mean that you've got it down. This is the word of Allah. Human beings will always have to be humble to it. So I pray that we develop this humble attitude towards the perfect word of Allah, and that we develop a culture of contemplating the Quran, and that culture helps keep our hearts unlocked. You know, and the other thing that will do, it will absolutely convince you that this can only be the word of Allah. وَلَوْ كَانَ مِنْ عِنْدِ غَيْرِ اللَّهِ لَوَجَدُوا فِيهِ اخْتِلَافًا. Allah Azza wa Jalla bring the light of the Quran into our hearts and minds, and allow that light to bring blessings into our families and our communities.